NC State basketball has just one final major non-conference test on the schedule, and if they're going to get it done, they got to do it in the Phog.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Friday sponsor is Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms, as always, apply. Happy Friday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, NC State men's basketball has a massive game coming up on Saturday. It is the last of our major 4 non-conference opportunities in order to boost our resume come March. And it is potentially in the hardest place they could possibly play a basketball game on the road. NC State is traveling all the way out to Lawrence, Kansas to face the Jayhawks in the Phog. Unfortunately, being that I told you they had 4 major non-conference opportunities, so far they're 0-3. They lost to BYU, they lost to Purdue, they recently lost to Texas, and here we are with one final chance for a massive boost to the resume, and you have to beat Kansas on the road.
I mean, we saw last year, right? Your resume doesn't have to be a spotless, dauntless thing in order for you to get where you're looking to go. So we know that that's not the case. However, it is good for level setting. It is good for setting expectations in terms of, hey, this is what this team is. This is what they are. This is what they could be. This is what they can, based on the fact that, I mean, the product that you see is the product that you see. At some point in time, you cannot run away from that. You cannot, say, oh, well, we're only this because, no, at some point you have got to accept who you are at that level. Now, with that being said, is it possible for State to come out with a win in this game? Absolutely. Absolutely. We have seen multiple times this season Kansas look extremely beatable. But again, Allen Fieldhouse is Allen Fieldhouse. It is one of, if not the most famous venue in all of college sports. I don't think that there is anywhere that is as recognizable, definitely not in college basketball. I don't think there's anywhere else in college basketball that comes even close to what they're doing in Kansas. So, this is going to be a tough game. And mind you, I haven't even talked about the on-court stuff yet. I haven't even talked about Naismith Player of the Year candidate in Hunter Dickinson. I haven't even talked about a walking steel machine in Harris. I watched them play the Dirty Foot Club, and I'm going to tell you something. That young man was playing such tight defense, I almost wanted to call the authorities. I almost said, Lawrence PD, this man is committing harassment. This ain't defense. This is different. He is walking guys up and down the court. He is going to the sideline in their huddle because he's all over the place. And when you look at that situation, it's going to be a tall task because, again, you're playing against a phenomenal team. But it's not an undoable task. It's not a impossible task. It's just a very tall one where NC State will have to execute the things that, objectively speaking, we've struggled at all year so far.
Kansas is number 10 in the country. Now, you might be thinking, I thought they were number 1 in the country. They were before this past week where they actually lost back-to-back games. They lost at Creighton and at Mizzou. But before that, they had rattled off wins over the Dirty Foot Club. That was the first weekend of the year. They beat Michigan State in New York City. I believe that was the Champions Classic in MSG. And they've also beaten Duke. That was out in Vegas. So Kansas is about to play the Dirty Foot Club, Duke, and NC State all before they get into conference play. And they're certainly looking for the clean sweep over the Triangle. Kansas basketball is synonymous with college basketball. Bill Self, the head coach, John Rothstein calls him a blank gangster. Every time they pick up somebody in the portal, they win a big game. He is a gangster. He is one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. He's won multiple national championships, countless Big 12 championships. I think it was like 14 in a row or something ridiculous like that, if not even more. They have been a staple in the sport of college basketball for so long. And Allen Fieldhouse, affectionately known as the Phog, is one of the most intimidating places in the entire country to go play. I kind of equate it to like Clemson in football, which is ironic because they lost 2 home games, but Clemson had that long win streak at home where they could not lose a game if they tried in front of the Tiger faithful. Allen Fieldhouse kind of feels a little bit like that to me. They just never lose when they're at home. And you do talk about Hunter Dickinson, one of the best players in the country. He's nearly averaging a double-double this year. I'm sure at some point he probably will average a double-double. He's only missing 0.4 in the rebound category. He might even get it after this game against us. And of course, you talk about DeJuan Harris and AJ Storr and KJ Adams, just freak athletes all over the court, 1 through 5. As always, they are an excellent basketball team from top to bottom. So for NC State, Kenton, we're going to go ahead and get into our main keys for this game. If NC State is going to do what seems to be the unthinkable, walk into the Phog and leave with a W, let's talk about the top 3 things that they have to get done. What would be first?
Contain Hunter Dickinson is the first thing. That guy may be 45 years old. He may have been playing college basketball since Dick Vitale roamed the sidelines. But this is, he is, like I said, a player of the year candidate for a reason. The young man is averaging 15 and 10, or 9.6, which is basically 15 and 10.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, he is doing so. And Bill Self is a much kinder man to me because he is doing so without stepping into the paint at a clip that I think he should be. Like I said, I've watched multiple games of Kansas this year, and he has a tendency to just kind of drift out to the three-point line for long stretches and just kind of be out there. I watched the Dirty Foot Club almost complete a comeback on this team because they refused to get him the ball down low, and he refused to sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to be like a tree that's planted by the water on this block. I'm going to be posted on the block like a mailbox. You got to work to move me. He was not dedicated to that. If he is in this game, because after 2 straight losses, right, what do you think Bill Self is going to try to do? After Hunter having 7 turnovers, some of which came when he was trying to do ball handling on the perimeter, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? You know, it's going to be, hey, Hunter, get your big behind down in that paint. Son, have you lost your mind? Because I'll help you find it. You are 7'2", 265 pounds. Their closest guy to you is about 4 inches shorter than you. So the first thing is, again, contain Hunter Dickinson. If you look at the games that they lost this season, that's been the thing. That's been the difference. In the wins this year, Hunter Dickinson has been, at minimum, meh. At minimum, he's been meh to good. These last 2 games, he objectively cost them the games in some regards. Against Creighton, 6 points, 8 rebounds, 50% from the field goal, 50% from the field, 0 of 2 from deep, 2 of 4 from the field. Against Mizzou, 8 of 15, 19 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 blocks, right? Sounds great, right? 7 turnovers and 4 personal fouls. You have to make Hunter work for it. You have to show up, keep bodies crashing the glass, make him work for everything. And if somebody else beats you, you live with that. But don't let that young man beat you by himself.
What makes Hunter Dickinson so good is he is probably above average at virtually everything. He rebounds at a high clip. He's very good around the rim. He can shoot from the perimeter. In fact, it's likely that you'll see him probably take at least 1 shot. He's attempted at least 1 3 in every single game this year, so we'll see if that continues on Saturday. But he can knock them down. It's not exactly a feature of his game, but again, that's what makes him so versatile. However, if I am Kansas and I am Bill Self, I am playing bully ball with him in this game. I'm putting him in the paint along with KJ Adams, and I'm saying you're going to have to beat us in the front court for you to have a shot. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's the Hunter Dickinson show on Saturday. He attracts a lot of attention, rightfully so. It's a very tall task for Middlebrooks and Brandon Huntley Hatfield to try and contain, and I do mean contain Dickinson, because we're talking about a potential player of the year candidate here. Second, Kenton, what do we got?
The second key is take care of the ball. And I say that because Kansas has some guards that get after you. Kansas, everybody on that team gets after it in terms of steals, in terms of forcing you into bad positions. But the leader of that group is DeJuan Harris. He's the guy. He is the one that when you think about, hey, how is Kansas able to apply such great on-ball pressure? DeJuan Harris is different. He's a different type of guy in terms of a defender. He does have a tendency to get handsy and defend with his hands a little bit, pick up some bad fouls. But I'm telling you right now, if you think that DeJuan Harris is a guy that you can get lazy with your ball handling, that you can, kind of just keep him at bay with kind of lightly thinking to yourself, oh, I'm going to keep my body between him and the ball. Congratulations. You're going to watch him streaking down the court with the ball in your hands while you thought you were setting up a play. He is that special, and he's just the ringleader. Hunter Dickinson is also a guy. He has very active hands. Like Grayson said, he's good at everything, including deflecting passes, coming up with steals on the block. And at the end of the day, this is a group that if you turn it over, if you let them get out in transition, it's not going to go well for you. It's a wrap.
I'll shoot you straight. When you're entering a game where you're at a physical disadvantage, you're at a coaching disadvantage, and you're at a disadvantage of an extreme intense atmosphere, if you go into those three situations and you want to turn the ball over at a high clip, forget it. The game will be over, like not even exaggerating, in like the first 10 minutes. If you can't prevent yourself from beating yourself, how in the hell are you going to go on the road and beat Kansas? It's just simply not going to happen. Now, surprisingly enough, Kansas actually turns the ball over slightly more than NC State does this year, but that's not something you're going to have to bank on. Kansas is a very disciplined team. NC State's got to find a way to be the more disciplined team because, again, if you can't do that, I don't like your chances at all. And the third and final key?
Hold them under 70. This team is undefeated when they score over 70 points. I get it. It's not Keith's style to have slow, grit and grind type of games. It's not that style. It's not his style to say, you know what, we're going to stop them from scoring. But the reality is, if you can do that to this team, they have shown the propensity to, hey, you think everything's going fine, but they'll just have a night or two where they get really, really cold. I am hoping this is not their get-right game because the last two games, by and large, have been that for Kansas. If you're looking at this team in their last two games, you're looking at 63 points against Creighton, 67 against Mizzou. Now, both of those were on the road. Their first true road games of the year, and they're returning to the Phog. But I'm not exactly sure that it's impossible to hold this team down offensively.
Yeah, I have some unfortunate news in regards to the law of averages. This would feel like Kansas is about to get right on us. But yes, to Kenton's point, the defense has been a strong suit for NC State this year. Probably the most encouraging facet of this basketball team because obviously it hasn't been three-point shooting. It hasn't been the foul line shooting. It hasn't been the offensive flow for a lot of these games. And Michael O'Connell having kind of a slow start to the year attributes a lot to that. So NC State, if you are going to have some semblance of a chance to win this ball game, the defense is going to have to force turnovers. It's going to have to cash in on those turnovers. You're going to have to box out like you've never boxed out for the entirety of this season so far. It's going to be everything has to go right for NC State, and that starts with being aggressive on defense. If you can limit the opportunities that Kansas gets each time down the floor, kind of in that same way that you saw us do it last March when we played teams like Marquette or Duke or whoever else. We limited their chances by being the superior rebounding team. Now, I'm not exactly predicting that we're going to do that on Saturday, but that is
ain't walking through that door.
That's the kind of elements you're going to have to find a way to get in this game if you do want a chance. Now, I don't think this will surprise anyone. Kenton and I are not all that confident. Kansas is coming off of back-to-back losses. They're coming home to the Phog. It is very much a get-right game for the Jayhawks, but you never know what can happen. This would be probably like one of the best wins in NC State basketball history in the regular season. I don't think that's an exaggeration. It'd be the top win of Keith's tenure outside of winning an ACC championship and then beating Duke in the Elite Eight. This would be win number one. This would be incredible. We're going to have to see what kind of NC State basketball team we get on Saturday. It is a very tall task. There's not a current betting line out. If I had to guess, I'd say it's probably Kansas by like 10 or 11 points being that they are at home and they're coming off of back-to-back losses. We'll see. However, this is the last P4 non-conference opportunity that NC State has to try and affect their resume. I will actually be boots on the ground. I'm flying all the way out to Kansas for the game. We will have a post-game live, so be sure to look for that on Saturday, but this one should be an interesting one in the Phog. Coming up next, we're going to get into Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Friday sponsor is Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks, and makes getting tickets to all of your favorite live events easier than ever before. Gametime Picks filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, and you won't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The curation of Gametime Picks makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, possibly even bowl games. You name it, they got it. Toggling the all-in pricing feature on the app will show your total upfront to receive 0 surprises at checkout. And as always, you get that panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, and again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? You already know. It's game time. Middle portion of our Friday show. Now time to get into Fan Friday. The first 3 will be basketball related, and then we'll close with the last 3 being football related. Without further ado, here we go. First one comes from Mal. She says, I don't know how to feel about the fact that my current favorite Pac basketball player used to wear baby blue. Dontrez is getting better every game. He and Marcus are going to be the DJs in star/talent level, not play style, of this season. So yes, Dontrez Styles and Marcus Hill have certainly emerged as the best 2 offensive options for this team. I do expect that to continue. And I think the more open looks that you can get, especially Dontrez Styles in each and every game, the better. He's leading us in 3-point shooting in terms of a volume standpoint. I know Breon Pass technically has the highest percentage, but he has not taken anywhere the amount of shots that Dontrez has. Marcus Hill, conversely, he is your best chance to score around the rim, or at least he's been the most consistent. Although he's just a guard, the way that he can be shifty in the paint and create looks around the rim, spectacular. And now, I don't exactly know how that will translate against Kansas when you have a guy like Dickinson in the lane, but the formula is going to remain the same regardless of who we're playing. Dontrez and Marcus Hill are going to have to lead the way.
Yeah, the reality is first thing first, I don't care what color you used to wear. You know, we all make bad decisions in life now. As long as you look forward and correct those decisions, you know, you don't stay stuck in a soft environment around soft people doing soft things. By the way, how them boys doing over there? That's neither here nor there. Anywho, you know, these 2 are getting better, and they are going to be the guys who are the catalyst for the offense, who are the driving force behind the offense in terms of scoring. I need to see them get some help. I need to see the other guys step up, because realistically, it's not just about, hey, how well are these 2 guys playing? It's about the guys around them. Are you answering, or in the words of one coach who may be coming back to Raleigh despite how everyone feels about him, be relevant when your number is called. How are guys being relevant when their number is called if their last name is not Styles or Hill? That's vitally important to this team.
I would love nothing more than a B2H emergence game, especially, like I said, when you have a guy like Dickinson. The stage has certainly presented itself for Brandon Huntley Hatfield to have a massive game to help out one Styles and Hill. Second one here comes from NC State alum. They say the basketball team puts good teams on a pedestal and lose before the game even starts. Then on the other hand, they don't take bad teams seriously, starting sluggish and going for highlights. Dangerous combo. So yes, basically, and this kind of stems off of the game the other night against Coppin State in Reynolds. Coppin State's one of the worst teams in all of college basketball, let alone on our schedule this year. The fact that that game was so close for both halves and we only won by 10, it's concerning, because to have Coppin State on a Tuesday and then Kansas on the road on a Saturday, you could not possibly have 2 entirely different atmospheres for a basketball game. Kind of in the same vein of what we were talking about with the keys, if NC State walks into this environment and they can't control the basketball and they can't communicate well, this game will be over literally before it begins. If you walk in intimidated you have no chance.
Absolutely.
Zero chance at all. You have to walk in fearless. You have to play like you have nothing to lose, and you have to be able to execute at a high level. To the point here, it is a very dangerous combo when you seemingly look inferior every time you do play a P4 opponent. And then when you play the middling G5 and smaller schools and it's a close game, what is your identity at that point? You don't really know. So NC State's going to have to get a whole lot tougher, like we've talked about. The intensity and just overall grit of this team has been kind of here and also kind of there. I would love nothing more than to see it on full blast on Saturday.
I want to make one thing clear. Grayson and I have talked about it's going to be a tall task. We've talked about how good Dickinson is. We've talked about how good Harris is. We've talked about how good the many guys on that team are. That does not mean you cannot win this game.
Right.
That does not mean that this team is unbeatable because, like I just said, they're on a losing streak, for Christ's sake. 2 games straight being held under 70. I have no doubt in my mind the Wolfpack can win this game. They have to have no doubt that they can win this game. They have to have no doubt. Hey, listen, this team is who they are. They're a really good team, but they put their shorts on one leg at a time, just like us. Until the day that I see somebody do a perfect double tuck back handspring into their basketball shorts, they have scholarships the same that we do. They have NIL the same that we do. Theirs might be a little bit more, whatever the case may be. Doesn't matter. What does matter is when that ball is tipped off, you cannot be out-efforted. You cannot be out-hustled. You cannot be out anything that you can control. Yes, Hunter Dickinson will be the tallest and biggest player on the court. Sure. And what does that mean to you? What does that mean? Him being taller than you doesn't mean that he has a divine right to beat you to loose balls. Him being taller than you doesn't mean that you can't set great picks on his guards to give your guard space and make him have to defend on the perimeter. It doesn't mean either one of those things. So with that in mind, I look at this situation and I say, this is simple. This is so simple in terms of it's not going to be easy, but it is simple to me in my mind. Everything you do, you have to play like this is your Super Bowl and just hit some damn shots. I know the three-point shooting has not been ideal so far this season. I know free throw shooting has not been ideal this season. But with Dickinson clogging up the lane, I don't think your path to victory is simply, letting Marcus Hill and company cook going downhill. I think you're going to need to make some shots, need to get him and Harris in foul trouble. And when you do that, make those foul shots.
Next one comes from John Feeney. Is this Mr. Feeney? Okay, never mind. He says the basketball offense is a fraud right now. We're supposedly a team that runs, but playing a Tony Bennett run off the shot clock offense. That kind of leads me into my final point discussing this game before Saturday. The X factor in my mind for NC State is more than likely going to have to be Michael O'Connell. And Michael O'Connell's had a kind of tough couple weeks. He's missed a lot of open looks. He's been out of games early because of early foul trouble. For NC State's offense, we've all seen that Michael O'Connell is the engine that makes this car go. And anytime he's not out there, the car is extremely stagnant. And a lot of times it's 1 or 2 players trying to dribble a hole in the floor until we get 3, 4, 5 seconds on the shot clock, and then we're rushing something ridiculous. Michael O'Connell is going to have to facilitate the best ball movement we have seen all season so far. If he's not out there due to foul trouble, or he can't find a way to impact this game either through making shots or assisting, or even somehow being our leading rebounder like he was against Texas, it's going to be an even tougher task for NC State to accomplish this one. Michael O'Connell is the straw that stirs the drink, and if there is no straw, we ain't drinking on Saturday. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And at the end of the day, the offense, to me, I think a thing that's a secret fourth key is turning Kansas over a lot. Because if you cannot do that, you're going to struggle against this team. And like I said, their last 2 losses were not games in which you look at them as a team and you say, oh, they lost those games just because these other teams are downright better than them or whatever the case may be. Those are games that I look at and I say, how did Kansas lose these games? And both of these games, they have multiple things in common in terms of how their opponent beat them. They had to have off nights. This wasn't just like Creighton played smothering defense, and, it's not about Creighton just being so great defensively that they locked them up. It was a bit of an off night for them. And on top of that, what you found was, hey, if they turn the ball over, we're going to take advantage of it. And on top of that, it was, hey, I know that you've got a Naismith Player of the Year type of guy, but you know what? We're going to do every single thing we can to make tonight extremely hard on him. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that you all know we're not going to cower. We're not going to back down. We want every single bit of that smoke you can bring our way. Don't worry. If you want some smoke, we're going to have a barbecue, baby. We do not believe that you have a divine right to beat us. It starts with the belief. It starts with the belief. It extends to the energy. Because once you believe, that energy is going to be there. It ends with the execution, because that's, at the end of the day, that's where you're going to end up. That's what you have to do. If you have the energy and the belief without the execution, you're not going to be able to get it. If our offense is still, hey, Jaden Taylor, go ahead and dribble it out for 15 seconds, and then we're going to set this kind of like little pick and roll thing towards the last 8 seconds of the clock and get something going. Like Grayson said, we're going to need immaculate ball movement. We're going to need passing with a purpose, cutting with a purpose, making guys be disciplined and stay home. Because while Kansas does come up with a ton of steals every game, there are some times where guys are peaking when they shouldn't be. Guys got their eyes in the wrong place when they shouldn't be, and that's where you're going to get it done. Again, Missouri showed you can turn them over at a high clip. Creighton showed you they'll have a bad shooting night here and there. In both of these games, they did not have great shooting nights. So don't you believe that you don't belong on that floor with them. Don't you believe that. Start it with the belief, extend it to the energy. You need to out – every 50-50 ball is yours, and then you execute. And that's what I believe is your path to a win.
Last thing on the offense, I will say this. I do think if probably like a handful or two more shots had fallen, we would be having a different conversation about the offense, because I don't think it's been such a problem of the offense that's been drawn up as it is just hitting the shot. Like I said with Michael O'Connell, he's missed several like wide open looks in the last couple weeks, and that would potentially completely change like that Texas game, for example. So I don't think the drawing up and the scheming of the offense has been that bad, but the execution just has not been there. We have not been able to find a consistent shot from many of the players so far. It's not just Michael O'Connell or just B2H, for example, but they're going to have to find a way to catch fire and essentially bank on Kansas not having that great of a shooting night, because they've shown they will do it. They will also turn the ball over like Kenton was talking about. So who knows? Who knows what we'll get on Saturday, but NC State's certainly going to have to execute at a high level regardless. Coming up next, we're going to round out our Friday episode with Fan Friday Football Edition. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second Friday sponsor is FanDuel. Tackle the NFL action all season long on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in just one singular place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page that you place all of your bets. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to join today. You'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if that first pesky $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com in order to get started. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Last couple of minutes of our Friday show. Now time for Fan Friday Football Edition. Here we go. First one comes from Droop75. They say Military Bowl or whoever is in charge of the matchups put us up against ECU because they know it'll sell the most tickets for them. They couldn't care less that we play them again in 8 months to start the season. You know, it's funny. So obviously we found out we're in the Military Bowl this past Sunday. We are up against the ECU Pirates. I've done a little bit of a 180. At first, I was a little bit, I wouldn't necessarily say annoyed, but I couldn't quite understand why they would make us play ECU in the bowl when we start with them next season. But to Droop's point here, the ticket sales is exactly why. If you're looking for some sort of buzz to drum up about your bowl game, why not make it a little bit of a regional rivalry. Because I think from a fan perspective, and also for both of these teams, this bowl game suddenly matters just a little bit more than it would have. If ECU were playing, like, let's say Virginia in this bowl game, who cares? Like, really, who cares about the Military Bowl if ECU is playing Virginia? Or on the other hand, if NC State is playing like Tulsa, I honestly wouldn't care that much. I watch for the player development aspect, but I couldn't care less about the actual result because it doesn't move the needle. But when you have ECU and NC State in a bowl, especially with the history of these two programs when they've played in a bowl, talk about the Peach Bowl way back when, or the rivalry it kind of used to be back in the days of Jim Valvano when he stopped scheduling ECU after they tore down our goalposts in Carter Finley. There's a lot of like buried rivalry moments that have kind of every now and then they get sparked up when we play the Pirates. But I will say scheduling us against ECU in a bowl game, it certainly raises the stakes because I know Dave Dorn knows you cannot afford to lose to these Pirates.
Almost made us lose our clean rating there. This is the difference between Grayson and I. He is much more strategic and does a lot more deep reflective thinking than I when it comes to things like this, because line it the hell up. I don't care who you want me to play, where you want me to play him. I don't care if you're saying, hey, Ken, you got to take on both teams in the backyard brawl in your little backyard. I don't give a damn. That's not, in the words of social media sensation Phog Extra, that's not my problem. My only problem is whooping your behind. That's it. That's all I want. That's all I care about. I got to play you again in 8 months. Good. I'm gonna give you a preview of what's gonna happen to you in 8 months. That's how I am, and that's who I am. I am a believer in anything that you cannot change in life, embrace it, enjoy it, and make the most of it. If you did not have, I know some people said, well, NC State wanted to get out of the Military Bowl because of the fact that they were playing ECU again in 8 months. Again, if I'm Coach Dorn, I get it. It makes it harder to beat them again in 8 months, whatever the case may be. I don't care. CJ Bailey's going to be bigger, stronger, faster. Hollywood, all those guys. All these guys are going to be better. I'm not worried about it. We're going to whoop you now. We're going to whoop you then. That would be my personal thought. But the whole ticket sale thing, I mean, that's definitely a thing, right? There's a lot of this rivalry in terms of, folks don't like each other and all that good stuff, and I get it. And I'm not going to be the guy that's like, oh, ECU's too lowly to be our rivalry. We don't like them. They don't like us. It's a rivalry in my book. If it's something beyond regular competition, to me, that's a rivalry. Anything that goes beyond like, hey, I just want to win this game because I want to win. Anything where it's like, there's a little something extra on this thing. There's a little lane yop, as they would say. I consider that a rivalry. And this here, again, I don't care who it is, line it up. But now you done gave us a team that doesn't like us, that thinks that they are up. Don't worry about it. Put that damn ball down. Let's get it done.
If we didn't seem to be in before, I can assure you the two of us are very much in now. Hand us the Pirates and put the ball down. Second one comes from Jackson's Dad 1. It says, I still remember getting embarrassed by ECU in the Peach Bowl back in the day. So every time we play them, I get uneasy. We could totally overlook them and end up on the wrong side of the scoreboard. Please demolish them, Pack. So yeah, this just connects to what we were just talking about. I do think there is a little bit of a raised level of importance in the mind of Dave Dorn here, because he talks a lot about performing against your in-state opponents, whether it is the Dirty Foot Club or Duke or Wake Forest, or now in this case, ECU. It does matter. And we don't exactly go up against ECU in a lot of recruiting battles. However, they're still the very same in-state recruits. So regardless of who you play within the state of North Carolina, you have to beat them. You want to establish yourself as the premier program within this state. So reflecting on this a little bit longer than just the 24 hours after the selection Sunday, this game matters to me more now. I am more fired up now than I was on Monday, and I can't wait to take it to the Pirates.
With all due respect, and I very genuinely mean this from the most, and when I say the most, I mean the most respectful way possible. That was 1992?
Yeah.
Grayson nor I were alive back then, so we don't really have a concept of that happening. But what I will tell you is none of those guys are walking through that door. with all due respect, we just lost Dick Sheridan, NC State legend there. He's not walking through that door as our head coach. When you think about Steve Logan, who I believe was the head coach of ECU at that time, he's not walking through that door. I am sorry to tell you, it's a different day now, but I do agree with that last sentence. Demolish him. Again, my problem ain't what happened in 92. It's just like when we played the Dirty Foot Club and people are like, oh, well, we have more wins than you. Brother, could women vote when y'all took that big lead? Was Betty White alive when y'all took that big lead? God rest her soul. But was she around back then? Exactly. Don't care about none of that. Line it up, put it down. Line it up and put the ball down. That's all I want to talk about. That's all I want to see done. Jackson, I'm right there with you. Put the ball down and demolish him. Demolish him. Don't get his team hope. Don't give them life. Don't give them. I know that they're missing basically their entire secondary, and you're bringing back all these receivers. Don't let them think that they can compete in this game. I am telling you this as somebody who knows when you let a team that shouldn't be in the game hang around, they get confidence. We saw it earlier this year. I'm not saying that NC State is worlds better than Western Carolina, but when that team from game one let them kind of, they're lingering, they're hanging, all of a sudden they start to believe they could do it. All of a sudden they believe. Don't let the Pirates get belief. Don't let them make them boys walk the plank early and send them over the deep end.
You saw this in Greenville just a couple of years ago in 22 when we opened our season out there. We let them linger for far too long to the fact that they probably should have beat us if not for missing a chip shot field goal. We let ECU believe that they belonged on the same field when, in fact, they absolutely did not. Our team was far better, and yet we only finished 1 point better in the game. You have to take it to them from the word go and establish yourself as the better football program within this state. Last one comes from Brian Hemrick. They say, I would love to see Phillip Rivers come as the OC and his son as our quarterback eventually. So we've kind of poked and prodded at this in the past, but I think now that NC State is aggressively recruiting Gunnar Rivers, his son, to be our quarterback. I think he's in the 2027 class. I'd have to double check. I think that's right. People are going to obviously bring up the idea of Phillip Rivers returning to NC State as a coach of some sort. However, the longer I've gotten to chew on this, I actually think this would be a bad idea. Not Gunnar. I would love for Gunnar to be our quarterback, but I don't think Phillip Rivers coming back to coach at NC State bigger than like a quarterback coach. I think quarterback coach would be fine, but I don't want Phillip to be our offensive coordinator, and I don't want him to be our head coach because in my mind, I think it would end up as kind of like a you don't meet your heroes situation because you might be disappointed. Right. I think Phillip Rivers is an NC State legend, and I wouldn't want to put him in a position that possibly gets tainted. Because if he comes back to state and he can't figure out how to do a good job, that would put a very weird taste in everyone's mouth on how you view Phillip Rivers from that point on. I don't want that situation to come to light here. So I think having Gunnar as our quarterback is one thing. I think that'd be a spectacular story, and I'm all on board for it because not to mention the kid is also very talented. But I don't think I want to see Phillip in a bigger role than, like, let's say, quarterback coach. I think that would be fine in my mind.
You know, I reserve judgment here because I believe the head coach, I believe the high school that he's coaching is winning. I believe they're doing good things and all that. I'm not sure how that translates. So, you could pretend and say, oh, I know it's not going to translate well, but some coaches have made that jump and they made it very well. So, I reserve judgment here. I would love to see us win. Don't care who the coordinator is. Don't care who the QB is. I don't care if it's Phillip Rivers' son. I don't care if it's Grayson's son. Brian, I don't care if it's your son at quarterback for us. I want to see us win whatever it takes to get there. Whoever it takes as our OC, whoever it takes as our DC, that's what I want to see make it happen, right? We all know I hate the Dirty Foot Club as much as anybody, but if Dre Bly coming in as the defensive coordinator, which, by the way, do not do that, okay? He's a lion, so
he's a con man.
But do not, Dave. Don't get no cute ideas. Don't get no cute ideas. But in all seriousness, I wouldn't care who it is as long as we're winning. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with people talking about Clayton White coming back. I know him as a human being. Like, I know him, and I think he's a great guy. If he can get us wins, yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. If he can't, he can't. Move on. Or, that's not your guy. Same thing with Phillip Rivers. And obviously, I'd love to have his son because you love to have talented players. You can never have too many talented players.
You know whose son I do want to see in Carter Finley? Bill Belichick's son. B2A, baby. Bring them on. Bill and Steve. I want both of them. Bring them to me. Welcome to the Triangle, Bill. See you soon. That'll do it for us here on Friday. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you think about NC State basketball's chances to go into the Phog and escape with a W. Anything else you have on your mind, basketball-related, football-related, be sure to drop that in the box as well. Mash that subscribe button, and we'll see you Saturday afternoon post-game, NC State on the road at Kansas. Be sure to join us for that. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.